Formula One season kicked off in Bahrain with a few surprises as the checkered flag was waved. The regulation changes look to have created a promising season of on-track battles and overtakes, and after round one, Ferrari had the 1-2 punch. Lewis got lucky to land on the podium, and Red Bull, well, safe to say things didn't go as planned, as both Perez and defending world champion Max Verstappen finished with DNFs. I'm Dame's Nellas, and this is Another Race Weekend, Canada's F1 show. And it is a great day to be a Charles Leclerc kart dealer.
Here it is right here. Here it is, you know.
As always, joined by Darryl Timmers to discuss all things Formula One after the initial season opener in Bahrain. Thank you so much for having and sitting down with us.
No problem at all. No problem at all. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, so now here we go. First race of 2022. Brand new season, brand new regulations. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think the regulations went as far as racing goes on track?
I'm gonna call it a hard 8.
Hard 8.
A hard 8.
Okay, so that was like an A?
Yeah, they definitely went in the right direction. The cars are looking way more racier. They're looking like they can pass, as you can see with Max and Leclerc up front. They were going back and forth for a while. Even in the mid-pack, people were passing. It wasn't like it was a lead-follow for the entire race. People were able to make moves. They were able to follow close. Like, seeing the car right behind someone on their wing and the car doesn't understeer and wash away was like a big step in the right direction. It's not perfect yet, but it's definitely in the right direction. It's a whole new way of racing now. You know, they can follow a little closer, but because of all of the aero restrictions and stuff that they're using nowadays, you know, they're using less, I guess, because they can follow closer. The slipstream is not as crazy anymore, right? So that's a good part where, you know, yes, they can get closer, but it's not going to make it easier because the cars are not, you know, aero like slipstream dependent, where it's, you know, any aero that comes off the car is going to be able to get less restriction down the straightaway. It's kind of has a little bit more drag down the straightaway, so it's not like the DRS is over powerful and it's making it look like, oh yeah, these guys are turbo boosting by each other. Max did look like that a couple of times. They clearly have some top end pace compared to everyone else. But, you know, for the general aspect of things, I would say, yeah, it was definitely a step in the right direction. I'm looking forward to this season because it's going to be a good race.
You know, looking at the racing, there was overtakes, there was close following, and like you said, there wasn't any washing into understeering out of the corner. You didn't hear guys on the radios like, I can't get close enough, man. I can't get close enough. So this is just the initial race. There's still 22 left.
Yes.
And early days and early signs of the regulation change, being that they changed it to make the racing a little bit more racy, would indicate that, yes, this season we are going to get some great on-track battles from front all the way to the back. Because that was the thing as well. As you look at the racing, you see the top teams, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, kind of pulling away and pulling those gaps. But in the back, it looked like a dogfight. From, I would say, like anywhere from that last points slot, P10 to P20, those cars were like 3 wide going into some corners. And it was, you know, there was a battle with Albon and Bottas and Zhou that was pretty phenomenal, man.
Yeah, it was. I honestly, I was super happy with all of the progress they made to make the racing a lot closer. Like you said, from 10th back, it was like, who knows who's going to get the spot. Mick was 9th with 6 laps to go when that restart happened, and 3 cars passed him because he couldn't hang on with those tires anymore. And, you know, when you see stuff like that where it's not over until that checkered flag hits, you know, majority of the time last year it was like, okay, you know, we got 5 laps left, the field's spread out enough that we're not going to see any changes now, where this race went down to the last lap, went down to, you know, the final points position was literally solved on the last lap. So it's showing that these cars are definitely a lot more racy, and the drivers are liking it.
Yeah, it was very Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
Now, after the first Grand Prix, which is the bigger headline for you? Ferrari 1-2 or Red Bull DNFs?
I think for the history of the sport, definitely Ferrari. You know, seeing them be up front and be comfortable up front. Like, they're not just barely hanging on. They controlled that race from the get-go. And that's got to be a huge headline in F1 right now because, for a heritage team just like Ferrari, who's been there since the beginning, it's good to see that, teams like, teams like Williams, where they've been around forever and they're struggling, it shows that, these teams have ups and downs, and sooner or later they sort their stuff out and they're right back to the front again. And seeing Ferrari right back at the front, this is great for the sport. It just shows never give up, keep developing your cars, and you'll get back to the front again. It is hard. It is a lot of R&D. It is a lot of work, a lot of man hours, but it works. And Ferrari proved that when they showed up this year, and from last year to this year, it's a totally different team. They just seem confident walking through the pits now.
So you're going with Ferrari 1-2.
Yeah, I'm going with the Ferrari 1-2. The Red Bull obviously is a big headline because that didn't happen last year. That didn't happen in the past few years. They were a strong, solid team that, we didn't really look at the reliability issue. But this happens when, two teams like Mercedes and Red Bull were in a dogfight for the championship and put all their marbles into one jar and said, we're going for this car last year and we'll worry about our next year car, after the season. And it showed that, the teams that said, forget 2021, we're focusing on 2022, like a team like HAAS, where they didn't even do any development into their 2021 car. They just said, let's do the 2022 car, let's get this going. And you can see that Ferrari and HAAS were very, very strong because those were the two teams that said, we're not putting any more development into our 2021 car last year. Whatever it is, it is. Next season's going to be a strong season for it, and we'll make it up next year, right? So that shows the two teams that have been dominating for so long, that had to put so much R&D into last year's car to get that championship hunt. It's kind of hurting them right now because they didn't get that R&D like Ferrari and HAAS did throughout the whole season last year. So that reliability and stuff, they can simulate it on the simulators and figure out, we got to fix this because this is going to be a problem later on in the year. And they went through all those small errors that the car is going to have throughout the season. And the Red Bull and Mercedes didn't have time to do all of that, and it's just they're like Toto said, this was a test for them. They came to this weekend knowing that they weren't going to be number one, and they were like, this is the best time to test all of the things that we need, reliability, what the car is going to do over a full race stint. Most other teams were able to do that on a simulator, where the F1, the Merc and the Red Bull were pretty much finalizing their designs at testing. Where it's if you look at the Ferrari, they had very minimal changes, like drastic changes to the car from day one of testing to the first race. Same with HAAS. The car was the same pretty much from the, I'm not going to say the same, but the same from the get-go.
The thing that's interesting about Red Bull in this particular instance is reliability hasn't been an issue since they parted ways with Renault.
Yeah.
They partnered with Honda, and now this is actually the first year that Honda is out of the sport.
Yep.
Not out of the sport,
yeah.
But this is a Red Bull power unit,
yes.
And for the first outing, this looks really, really bad.
Yes.
3 out of 4 cars with that power unit didn't even finish the race.
Exactly, and if you look at the Mercedes too, the back 6 cars were Mercedes-powered vehicles, so it's kind
and
of.
And if you look at the Ferraris, when you're
all,
talking Alfa, you're talking HAAS, you're talking Ferrari.
They're all in the top 10.
Outstanding.
Yep, they're all in the top 10.
Opening races.
Exactly, and the teams that kind of struggled were like you said, the Honda cars, they were fast, but they had an engine issue. 3 of the 4 cars didn't finish. So, that's got to be weighing on them now going into the next race, which is 5 days away that they're on track. So that's kind of like, okay, well, we don't have time to go crazy into the R&D to fix this right now. So let's hope that we can replace a bunch of parts, maybe find something that, happened with the cars that they can, okay, this is what the general idea of the issue was. Let's try to fix that one area and hope that the rest of it's okay. And the Mercedes cars just, they've got to pick up the pace.
Max Verstappen, DNF, it happens. That's motorsport.
Yeah, it is.
Mercedes, on the other hand, we spoke in the last podcast. I vividly remember saying to you, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying sandbagging. The car looks very difficult to drive right now. Talking back and forth on text throughout the quali. Car just looks stiff, which means they haven't really got down to the bottom of this porpoising thing.
No, they haven't.
And the quick fix was just to stiffen everything out to try and get some boost down the straight. They didn't have the boost down the straight. But they somehow managed to finish 3-4.
Yeah.
They got a good points haul. I think going into the race, 5-6 was the best case scenario. They land 3-4. Let's talk about the drive from both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, and let's discuss why Lewis Hamilton makes the big bucks.
That car should not have been on the podium. It's as easy as that. He could have got Perez maybe, because they with that safety car happening, they put him on the wing of the Red Bull, which at that point Lewis can try to get around Perez. Perez was struggling a little bit, and it looked like he could have got him by the end of the race even without that DNF. But this is why he makes the big bucks. He made a car that should not be there on the podium. And this is kind of scary for everyone else, because if Mercedes is struggling, and everyone knows that sooner or later they're going to sort it out, the fact that he's got a podium to start the season, which means he's third in the championship, which means he's not that far behind the leaders. So all the other teams were hoping Mercedes struggles for the first 4 or 5 races, and then it's too big of a gap for them to get the championship. And it's too big of a gap for Lewis to get his 8th. So when they see Lewis third in the championship after a race that they didn't even think he was going to finish in the top 5, it's dangerous. That's not what teams want to see right now, because if all of a sudden after, when they have a little bit more of a break in between races and they come back with a couple more upgrades, what if they sort it out a lot quicker than people think, and Lewis is still in the top 5 going into, the fast Mercedes again. And, this is part of the sport, the R&D, the struggle that people do, and the mental aspect of things to get over knowing that, we're in damage control at this point. We need to just put the consistent laps in, a consistent race, so that we can get points, so that if we do sort it out and we do become one of the top cars, we're not that far behind, and we can make up that championship hunt again. And the fact that Lewis came away with a third, it was shocking. It was like, and now Lewis came away with a third. Max and Perez don't even have any points. And that's just like that. If you would have told me to bet on this going into the weekend, I would have not thought this was going to be the results. And I bet you if you went up to Lewis and George and were like, hey, if we give you 3rd and 4th right now, would you just walk away from the weekend? They would have taken it and ran.
Now, what do you think? What do you make of George Russell's official Mercedes debut? He had a race before in the car, different circumstance, but this is officially him under the Mercedes Petronas AMG team. How did his race go?
I think it was a good, solid weekend from him. They showed that he can put the laps in, he can be consistent. He doesn't go crazy and try to overdo the car. He just settled into his own race, and it ended up coming away with the top 5, which is huge for him. Definitely, because the car wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't like he was 10th and Lewis was finished 3rd. He finished right behind Lewis. So, it's a really good showing for Russell. It's a really good start to show that he's going to be the support with Lewis or the championship contender. So yeah, it's honestly, it was really good to see him there and not far back. That was kind of the issue with Bottas. It was, we see it where Hamilton was struggling with the car, but he still finished in the top 5 and he was outside the top 10. The fact that Russell was there and contending, if something happened with Lewis, he would have been on the podium. So it shows that he's there to be a good teammate. If Lewis isn't in contention for the championship, and he is, then they have a good chance of it. And I think he should be happy with what how this weekend turned out, and look to the next weekend.
No doubt, it was a great points haul for Mercedes. Damage control maximized, I guess you could say. Currently sitting P2 in the Constructors' Championship. And in P3, get ready for it. That HAAS is the real deal.
It is.
Kevin Magnussen comes back. He had, 2, maybe 3 days in the car?
And
early on in the race, was giving Lewis a run for his money. He made a mistake going into corner 1, but he was still able to put a car like the HAAS.
Yeah, in the top 5.
Very close to the podium.
Yeah, it's honestly, this is a kudos to Magnussen. Obviously, he's the real deal. He can drive. We've all known he can drive. When he was competing with the HAAS car, when it wasn't really that good, and he was at the back, he was frustrated. And you can see that he just came into the sport now, and it's a way more mature Kevin. He doesn't really, I think he just doesn't care anymore. He's just like, they brought me back. I'm here to help them get to the front. I'm at the front after 3 sessions. And the fact that he was able to be that successful from being out of an F1 car, which F1 cars are not the easiest things to jump back into. And look at Hulkenberg, where he was kind of struggling at the back. Yes, he outqualified his teammate, which was cool.
Which is a whole other thing.
Yeah, let's just leave that alone. Yeah. And but with Mag jumping up and beating his teammate by a fair bit. Nothing taken from Mick. Mick had a solid race. He almost got those points.
Mick had a good race. He got mixed up and did a phenomenal 360.
And kept going. And I think he lost one position when he did that.
He lost two quick. Yeah. And it was the guy who hit him. He got penalized for it. But I really do think that if that hadn't happened, we're looking at double points for HAAS.
Yes.
And some incredible audio from Gunther Steiner. Drive to Survive Season 5. Because,
the car is looking solid. Like you said, he made those errors. But it's going to happen when you've been out of an F1 car for that long and you haven't raced and you have people all over you. And it wasn't like he drove off the track. It's just he blew his apex, missed
Which
the apex.
happened to Max.
Yeah,
it happened to the best of them.
Yeah, and when Lewis came out of the pits, he almost drove off the track. Like
that was.
Yeah, I thought he was going around because clearly the car.
That's why they pay him the big bucks.
Yeah, exactly. And for him to just jump in and top 5 that car, it's huge to show why he's back in that car. And the HAAS has clearly put the time in last year to develop that car to be at the pointy end of the stick now.
So as we were saying earlier in the discussion, we're looking at the Red Bull cars, 3 out of 4 don't finish. We're looking at the Mercedes-powered cars, for the most part, running in the back.
Yeah.
And we're looking at the Ferrari cars dominating the first race.
Yeah.
Because Alfa Romeo actually had a fantastic weekend.
They did.
Double points haul.
Yep.
Zhou puts it P10 for his first race, scoring points. He's very happy. Bottas had a rough start, was able to pick it back up, finishing the points. What do you make of their weekend?
I honestly think this kind of put the critics to rest about Zhou. He can clearly drive. He's in F1 and he top 10. He was one of the few guys to ever score points in this first race. And, that just kind of put the confidence into the car that much more. And Bottas, like you said, he had a kind of a rough start, but he kept his head down and charged back through the field, which, it was kind of... hey, look, this is what I can do type thing. And
to my critics.
Yeah, to my critics and whoever may concern.
That's right.
And I'm happy with it. Like, the fact that it was such a mix-up in the top 10 with manufacturers and different drivers and seeing that, the cars that were developed a lot last year were successful. And it would kind of suck if all of a sudden HAAS was still at the back of the pack. And it's like, at that point, you have to look at the team and be like, okay, what happened? Why did we have double the amount of time that everyone else did to develop a car and it didn't happen? The Alfa looked really good, looked really solid. It didn't have a complete race pace. It had solid race pace, but it wasn't like it was running up front or anything. But it's still, last year they were struggling to score points. They would get one or two races where they did score points, but it was always like a 10th and stuff like that where, both cars being in the top 10 shows that, we can go into the weekends now not knowing who's going to have a good race, not knowing that these guys are going to dominate. Yes, Ferrari is very strong right now, but it wasn't like Red Bulls were way far behind. They were there. They just they didn't have the longevity of the race pace like the Ferrari did. And you saw it once, Leclerc and Max stopped battling, Leclerc checked out again. And it just shows that, the Ferrari is a better package for the races. The Red Bull could hang on, but it's just they got to sort out some of the reliability issues and some of the I guess the tight corner speed where
second sector.
Yeah, the second sector.
So let's discuss that for a second, because lap 17 we see the initial phases of this great battle between the two young lions, Verstappen, defending champion, and Leclerc, who's leading the race.
Yep.
Verstappen comes in, he takes him on corner 1, quick switch back. That's one lap. Lap 18, same thing happens.
Same thing.
Lap 19, same thing happens.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, we know Max is great.
Yeah.
And we've been critical of his maturity in the past because I think it is warranted.
Yeah.
And this is another instance where I feel like it was warranted. He tried the same move 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
And there's 2 DRS zones within the space of 3 corners.
Yeah.
Why do you think he didn't just get close enough? Because he also lunged when he locked that tire up. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
He would have been close enough to take him in the DRS zone, get into the tight sector of the track where the Ferrari is faster than you do. They've had the margin. It was like half a second in that sector. You could position your car, keep them behind, and then get back to that main straight on lap 19 or 20 and give it the top end and
Yeah.
create a little buffer,
Yeah.
you know? So is it a racecraft thing with Max? I know he's the champion. I
Yeah.
realize this might be kind of crazy to say. But at what point is he going to develop the racecraft and realize it doesn't need to be balls to the wall every single corner?
Yeah, I think at that point he knew he was in kind of a panic mode where if Leclerc got into his rhythm, he was going to check out on him. So, and we saw the straight line speed of the Red Bull down, the last quarter of the straightaway. It was like monstrous.
It was
how
crazy.
fast he was going.
Because I remember looking at Mercedes when he was
Yeah.
trying to overtake a few, and I'm like, wait a second.
They're just
you
stalled.
Could see
yeah,
it.
they would get the run and they would just stall beside where Max was
Red
like
Bull was crazy.
7 car lengths back
It
and
was
he pulled up underneath him. So I think he knew that they were so fast in the tight sector or the second sector that if he didn't do something in the first sector, it was over, right? So he was lunging on him because he knew he had so much top line speed, he had so much straight line speed that if you looked at it, maybe into turn 4, it wasn't that long of a straightaway for him to lunge on him again. Because if it comes out of the tight section,
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And Leclerc is, if he's on Leclerc's bumper and he doesn't get by him if Leclerc blocks going into turn 4 and he doesn't get by him, there's a big chance that Leclerc will just gap him into the next sector. So I think he just knew this was the only place that I really had, outpaced the Ferrari, and that's where I had to go. It's one of those situations where, when they notice that they're the fastest car on the straightaway, in your head you're like, okay, well, clearly the best place for me to pass is that straightaway, so I got to keep going on the straightaway. Yes, I think he could have tried something different and went for turn 4 at least once, maybe on the first time, or maybe after the first time he messed up, maybe after the second time, try something different. Because clearly it wasn't really working. But I think that last lunge when he locked up was like his last ditch effort to be like, I can't let him be this far ahead coming out of turn 1 and not lunge on him, because, if they went through it, they would have been 2-3 car lengths separated. And then if he didn't get him into turn 4, that was it. Right. So I think it was his last ditch effort to be like, I'm going for this because I know I can pass him at the end of the front straightaway. And yeah, maybe think outside the box a little bit more next time. But hey, it is what it is. And at that point, he is a world champion, and there's got to be some sort of thought process of why he kept going into turn 1.
Yeah, they got to process a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy for us to sit down and watch the TV and be like, but they're processing a lot. They're processing the speed. They're processing the bumps on the track for the braking zone, all the gadgets and stuff they got on the wheel.
Yeah.
And you're right. Sometimes you just catch that red mist, world champion or not. You're like, this is it. This is all I have. Because let's be honest, Leclerc managed that race beautifully.
Yes.
From lights out, he let Verstappen know early. You ain't bullying this.
No.
You're not just going to come up here and we did that once before in Austria. Put that in the memory bank. It's not happening no more. I thought it was a brilliant race from Leclerc, and he checked out before that. But he checked out before the first pit stops.
Yes.
He was 3 seconds up.
Yeah.
So chances are you are probably correct in there. Moving things forward just a little bit. McLaren. W.
Yeah.
T.
I don't know.
14, 15?
Yeah, and like barely 14th, 15th, and you can't blame Ricciardo because Norris is right there. It's, yes, Norris had an okay qualifying, but I think he just put that one lap together. That was a Hail Mary lap that kind of worked for him. But you can see in the race pace, like they had nothing. They started on the medium tire to try to go the longevity to see if they can, overcut a bunch of people. Didn't work. and yeah, like I don't know what's going on with the McLaren. I thought that the McLaren was going to be pretty strong this year. They looked all right in testing. They looked like the car doesn't look twitchy or anything. It just looks slow.
It's just slow.
Yeah, it doesn't look horrible to drive. It's just slow. Like I don't know what else to say except they need to sort that out because that's not McLaren. This looks like they were 5 years ago when they were at the back of the pack with Honda.
I was just about to say, like, the trajectory over the past 3 seasons has been linearly, steadily rising.
Yeah.
And then to fall flat.
Like
to take a dip. That's not even a fall flat, because that would insinuate a plateau of the trajectory. Exactly. They dipped.
Yeah, they were battling with the Williams cars that have been struggling, and same with the Aston Martins. Like, it's weird.
We're Canada's F1 show. Yeah. We do our best, but there's really, Stroll finished P12.
Yeah.
But
but it was
It was
also
just such a bad weekend for Aston, and this is like we have such high hopes for them.
Yeah.
And like you said, it could be a power unit thing that Mercedes. Those are Mercedes.
Yeah,
powered
the
cars
McLaren,
floating around at the back.
Aston Martin, and the
Williams
are all at the back. I don't know if it's the way the engine works with the aero package they have, but you could see that they didn't have that extra little bit down the straightaway. Even when, like you said, Lewis was passing, it was like the Red Bull really zoomed up beside them, where the Mercedes were kind of, they're getting there and they're pulling up beside and they're like, okay, I got to go deep on the brakes.
Yeah.
Where, a couple, where their Ferraris were,
even the Ferrari, they had that done before the braking zone.
Yeah, they were pulling back in. They were
finished.
And
that was the one big takeaway for me, was that ultimately the Mercedes just looks slow.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know what it is.
And I'm not talking about just them.
No.
I mean, when you look at all the cars, you can just look at the results, right? Anything with that power unit in there is struggling at this point for pace.
Yeah, maybe in the end, because Mercedes didn't have that time to develop their engine as well, put different upgrades or whatever over the R&D over the winter. The Ferrari engine clearly was a lot better and a lot more solid than the rest of the field, and the Honda was, it was quick, but it just didn't have, it has reliability issues, right?
The interesting part about the Ferrari is they have a shady past.
Yes.
Shady past.
Yes.
But I digress.
Yeah.
Let's do it. First race of the year, overwhelmed, underwhelmed, surprised.
Overwhelmed, it's gotta be the HAAS, man. Like, the HAAS was wow, fast. and I just loved seeing the HAAS up front and how happy they were. They were going through such tough times for the last couple of years that I was just so happy to see the positivity coming out of Gunther and the team, like how relaxed Kevin was. Like, that wasn't the old Kevin. Like, he used to be so wound up, and it seemed like there was so much more pressure on him.
Suck my balls.
Yeah, exactly.
You saw him relaxed and mature. They were dapping it up on the grid,
exactly.
him and Hulkenberg. It was nice to see, for real.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's just, I just loved seeing how relaxed they were, and Kevin just seems so mature now. Like, he just takes it as it comes, and if he finished 10th, he would have been as happy, just because they were in the points.
Points finish for them is big, no doubt.
The surprise, I'm going to say that the Ferraris, the 1-2, I knew they had the pace. I was surprised because the Red Bulls, I thought the Red Bulls were going to mix it up and not get the 1-2. So when I saw the Red Bulls, when the Ferraris were finishing 1-2, but also with Sainz, he says he's struggling in this car. I didn't think he was going to have the race pace. If he finished in the top 5, you better, right? Your car is fast. But the fact that he finished 1-2 and he was noticeably slower than his teammate, and he even said, "I am missing a half a second this weekend."
He said, "I'm struggling." He did say that.
It's one of those things where, I expected Leclerc to be up there, but have a 1-2 and the start of the season, it was surprising to me. It was, and a good surprise in the end. The underwhelming's got to be the McLarens. I don't know what is going on. They just look bad. They've got to go back to the drawing board. They have to turn that car around. I don't know what it is, but they need
because
to
it is a crucial season.
It is
for McLaren and for Daniel Ricciardo.
It is.
He could play around. There are some guys on the sideline.
Yeah,
De Vries, Piastri, like they got some young savages in the wings.
And the fact that De Vries is a Mercedes driver and that's a Mercedes powered team, it could very well go that way.
Danny needs to have a big year this year.
Does.
And COVID, yes, this weekend will shoot him some bail, but with all the experience he has, he needs to get up into that car quick.
Yes.
And they got to get on top of that thing quick, because that's the thing I've been saying, right? A lot of people are like, don't worry, Mercedes is going to get it together. Mercedes is going to get it together. But it's like, you don't realize nobody else is standing still waiting for Mercedes to get it together. Everybody's still developing their stuff. So if you start off up here and you continue to develop, the gap is the same, if not bigger, because we knew one team was going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
One team was going to get it wrong. And they've been saying it since the regulations were announced. And at the moment, it looks like McLaren is that team.
It does. And it's surprising because they developed in the past, like you said, in a nice linear motion up. And this was a plummet down, and it was not looking good for them.
It was the big talk of the paddock that Google Chrome had the wheel covers, the sponsorship on, and I was like, that's interesting. It's a good fit. It's a good match. I saw a meme after the race that like somebody said, McLaren putting that car in incognito mode or
Yeah. I also saw one where the Google was gone, the Google's dropped, and it's Internet Explorer.
Oh man, yeah, that's what it looked like.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I hope they can turn it around, just for one, like you said, for Ricardo, and two, because that McLaren does not deserve to be back there.
Well, there you have it. The first round of the 2022 Formula One season is in the books. Bahrain Grand Prix. Ferrari go 1-2. Lewis Hamilton squeezes up into that third spot. We're moving forward to Saudi Arabia. One of the newer circuits.
Yep.
Street circuit, tight circuit.
Tight circuit.
Got to be a fast car to get around
Yeah,
that circuit
yeah.
because it's a track dominant, track position
Yeah.
kind of win there. Who do you think takes it?
I honestly, with the Ferraris coming off so strong and being fast in those tight sectors, I say they're going to be another team to reckon with when they're at this race. I do think if Red Bull can figure out the reliability, there will obviously be there. And I don't know, the Mercedes, I have no idea. The Mercedes, I like, they just don't look fast in any corner. So, you'll see. And I think, that power unit of the Ferrari is going to keep that HAAS in the top 5. And I think they're going to come away with some wins this year. They're going to squeak into that podium position a couple times. And I think, you can see HAAS up there battling for wins this year.
Well, we'll be back at it post-Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. For Darryl Timmers, I'm Dames Nellas. This has been another Race Weekend, Canada's F1 show.